with us today. And congratulations again to the Fijian.
Bulavinak, and a very good afternoon to you all. I thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules. I know many of you are going to different forums to be here this afternoon, and warmly welcome you to the launch of Fiji's Climate Vulnerability Assessment. I also acknowledge the World Bank and the ACP-EU Natural Disaster Risk Reduction Program, with whom the Fijian government has collaborated with to develop the first ever Climate Vulnerability Assessment Report. We meet on the margins of COP23, ladies and gentlemen, where Fiji, as the president of COP23 of the UN Global Meeting on Climate Change, is dedicated to progress the climate talks and at the same time shed light on the vulnerability and needs of small island states. 2 years ago, we agreed to the Paris Agreement and adopted the 2030 Agenda with a commitment to leave no one behind. This commitment is now as imperative as ever. As we continue the critical work of implementing the Paris Agreement, we must continuously work towards meeting the needs of our people while ensuring complementarity and connectivity of all efforts from the national to the regional and, of course, international levels. It is without doubt that we, small island developing states, are among the most vulnerable in the world. But it is also without doubt that we are among the most resilient of people. This year alone, within a span of 4 months, February to May, the Pacific region witnessed 4 tropical cyclones. Later in the year, of course, Hurricane Maria and Hurricane Irma ravaged the Caribbean region. These cyclones left a trail of devastation in our small economies. In fact, we are now witnessing an emerging trend. Strong off-season tropical cyclones because, of course, one of the other reasons is being warmer oceans. To understand our vulnerability to climate change and to quantify our adaptation needs, the Fijian government, in collaboration with the World Bank, undertook a climate vulnerability assessment, the report we are launching here today. Collectively, Fiji recognizes the glaring reality that confronts us, and so adapting to the climate change is an absolute necessity. The Climate Vulnerability Assessment Report comes at an opportune time as it complements our rebuild efforts post-Cyclone Winston. I don't know how many of you are aware of this or not, but we had the second strongest storm ever recorded that hit landfall, at least until then. Strongest storm that hit in the southern hemisphere, Cyclone Winston last year, which killed 44 Fijians, unfortunately, wiped off about 1/3 of the value of our GDP, damaged over 225 schools. This is the reality of what one may call modern-day erratic climatic events. The report, ladies and gentlemen, outlines the particular vulnerabilities faced by Fiji and the possible solutions to address climate change and increase Fiji's resilience. Assessing vulnerability to climate change is important for defining the risks posed by climate change and provides information for identifying adaptation measures. It enables practitioners and decision makers to identify the most vulnerable areas, sectors, and social groups. This in turn means climate adaptation options are targeted at specified contexts, are developed and implemented. This is what Fiji's Climate Vulnerability Assessment seeks to do. It will inform our development planning and investment decisions. It pilots a methodology to assess climate and disaster vulnerability and design climate change adaptation and risk management plans and strategies. If I could take a little bit of your time, given that this is such an important report, to highlight the 4 key messages of the report. Firstly, that Fiji is already exposed to large natural disasters, and climate change is likely to amplify these risks, threatening the development objectives articulated in our National Development Plan. Our National Development Plan, ladies and gentlemen, we're happy to announce will be launched next week on Tuesday by our Honourable Prime Minister here in the Bond Zone. Secondly, the Fijian government has made significant efforts to reduce climate and disaster risks, better prepare for natural disasters, and respond to major shocks. Third, interventions in 5 main areas, which are building inclusive and resilient towns and cities, improving infrastructure services, climate-smart agriculture and fisheries, conserving ecosystems, and building socio-economic resilience can further reduce the country's vulnerability. However, this has, of course, significant financial implications, with investment needs estimated at Fijian $9.3 billion over 10 years, or approximately $4.5 million US, or about 4 million US, 4.5 million US actually, plus additional maintenance and operation costs and social expenditures. Lastly, implementing these interventions will be extremely challenging and will require improved decision making, especially regarding public asset maintenance. And in fact, this morning I was at a climate law gathering where they also need to look at whether public assets will actually become redundant. So it's very, very important that if you are going to embark on some major capital investment, you need to be able to understand whether that capital asset will in fact be relevant in 5 or 10 years' time, in particular with the uptake of technology, in particular with the vulnerabilities of climate change. Would that asset be in fact a viable option for you or not? These key messages, ladies and gentlemen, support the already strong political and institutional commitment of the Fijian government to better understand and address the impacts of climate change and natural hazards. We are pleased to inform the methodology deployed in the Fijian Climate Vulnerability Assessment is replicable in other contexts, including but not limited to island states. In addition to this, it can contribute to the revision and enhancement of the adaptation component of countries' nationally determined contributions, or NDCs. Ladies and gentlemen, if our development ambitions are to come to fruition, it must be underpinned by strong climate actions that are catalyzed with adequate and predictable finance. Finance, ladies and gentlemen, of course, is very, very important. We just came off about an hour ago where our Honourable Prime Minister was at a gathering where we signed an agreement with the European Investment Bank. This is a very critical investment that the European Investment Bank has made. Of course, they've lent us money together with the Asian Development Bank and of course with the Green Climate Fund, including the Fijian government. So it's a blended finance approach. We need more blended finance approach to addressing many of these issues, in particular addressing issues of climate vulnerability and the building of resilient infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot overemphasize the importance of financing as we continue to champion the battle against climate change. I'm very delighted to be here, and I have much pleasure to launch Fiji's Climate Vulnerability Assessment Report. Thank you very much.
After that, ladies and gentlemen, we will have Mr. Tom Perry, communication. We will then have technical highlights of the Fiji climate vulnerability. Let's have the opening speech by the Fijian Attorney General and Minister.
Or the mantra that we went out with was that the film, the assessment really is there to feed your, so we've already talked about cycling wisdom. Take 5 minutes just to really transport yourself from...
Thank you. Great. Your Excellency, have your signature for the... Have you